Hello, and welcome to episode 13 of Digital Ascendancy, Powerline Info podcast series. Here on Digital Ascendancy, we're all about championing transformative digital solutions. And today, we have Paul Kader, lead of the cybersecurity channel at Cisco Canada. On today's episode, we have a discussion on the cybersecurity trends they are seeing at Cisco, as well as some of the new tactics attackers are using, and how Cisco Umbrella and Duo can help.
All right, well, welcome everyone to Powerline's podcast on security. My name is Mike Himbo. I'm Powerline's field CTO. I'm responsible for all of our leading edge and strategy technology conversations. And with me today, I have Paul from Cisco. Paul, you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Great, thank you, Mike. My name is Paul Kader. I lead the cybersecurity channel for Cisco Canada. So pretty much if you're in Canada and you're a channel partner, I work with you to help us grow the partnership. Really happy to be working with Powerline today to share our information on how we're helping organizations in Canada better secure their businesses. And really looking forward to this chat. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here. So let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about big, broad strokes. What are the areas that you're seeing at Cisco when it pertains to cybersecurity in Canada? Right? I mean, like there's all sorts of things we can talk about. But if we're going to paint this with a roller brush, not a fine brush, what are the big areas you're looking at and seeing?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and getting asked that question a lot. A lot of organizations through the pandemic have had to make a lot of changes, and they're trying to not just make changes that are going to be good for the next 6 months, a year, although they need that kind of fast response time because the landscape has changed dramatically, but they're also kind of looking future thinking. So some of the industry analysis, I've been looking at a bunch of that as well as some of the stuff that Cisco's looking at is ransomware is continually being a persistent threat to organizations. In fact, the stats right now are that somebody is getting a ransomware attack every 14 seconds. I've heard 11 seconds, I've heard 14 seconds, but it's ridiculously high. Now, that's obviously at a global percentage. That's not specific to just Canada, thankfully. We're generally a little bit of a safer country from that perspective. Interesting one, cyber threat actors are trying to influence individuals and really degrading trust in online spaces. I think a lot of us have a story where a friend of ours or ourselves have had some kind of whether it's a Facebook hack. We're hearing a lot of things going on with businesses not wanting to use TikTok because of some of the compromise that's going on there. So a lot of interesting challenges in that space. Of course, cyber skills shortage continuing to be a problem for businesses. It's leading more to organizations looking at more outsourced services, more professional services, more managed services in the security space. And of course, the increasing complexity as we move away from having that, we'll call it moat and castle type security posture and, proliferating where our users are, where the applications are, leveraging a lot more tools, the complexity has increased and it's allowing the bad actors to find more ways to kind of attack us. So that's a challenge. Right. Big picture wise, the trends that we're seeing are, increase in zero trust adoption, cloud security, automation orchestration, and platform and vendor consolidation. Those are kind of the big hot topics to kind of solve some of the problems that I just highlighted. What we're also seeing is that 82% of the company leaders have stated that they're going to allow employees to work remotely at a permanent level or at some time. So we're not seeing this return to office in a big sweep. So all that kind of legacy infrastructure does need to change because the way we're doing business has changed. And 92% are saying that some or all of their services will be in the cloud by the end of 2023. So that's really driving a lot of behavior and a lot of the changes in the cybersecurity market. Good question.
Right. Yeah, so it's interesting you mentioned ransomware because that's something that Powerline observed. I mean, everyone saw that rise coming last year and this year, and so Powerline has a pretty strong and robust managed services practice, and with it a managed security services practice. So for all of our managed services providers, we went through and with all the information we have as the MSP, we did a free included ransomware assessment. It's a posture assessment. We went through, and to your point about that moat and castle approach, we evaluated them from Well, do all of your houses have deadbolts? Right? I mean, like there's a moat and castle approach, but there's something to be said for that local, that highly local, that granular security control. So where are they there? Where are they on all backups, recovery? Have they tested backups? That kind of thing. And we provided these reports to our customers, and they've been very well received. Because as the MSP, it's as much a report on us as it is on the customer. So having that transparency, which to your point about platform and vendor consolidation, that transparency we found has been really valuable for our customers.
Yeah.
Right? Making sure that they understand that we have issues and they have issues, and really this is all a game of cat and mouse.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. That's excellent. Thanks for the context. For other industry trends, I mean, I know we're going to talk a bit about this later in some of the stuff when we talk about Duo, but industry trends in multi-factor authentication, the whole app device versus SMS, where do you see that moving? How do you see changes there? What are your views on that one?
So it's interesting because we're seeing a huge increase in identity and access management security. We're seeing, obviously ransomware compromise. A lot of identity theft is happening right now. We're seeing in Cisco two numbers that I've seen. So one is the increase in cyber risk adoption has grown in the 400%, specifically in Canada, in the last year and a half.
So you mean the cyber risk insurance adoption, right?
Correct. Cyber risk insurance.
Yes, right.
Yeah, I missed the word insurance. Okay, good point.
Yeah.
And we're also seeing similarly an increase in Duo at almost a 400% year-over-year growth in Canada as well. And the two are intrinsically linked. Because what's happening is a lot of the cyber risk insurance providers have now made multi-factor authentication a mandatory requirement or a way to reduce the premium. So we're seeing lots of calls either from organizations that are procuring their insurance or from insurance organizations saying they have clients that are interested, but they need a fulfiller for multi-factor authentication. So we're definitely seeing that trend on the rise, and for obvious reasons, right? If we look at passwords, I think it was the 1960s when passwords first came out. If you go back to 1960s, that's when like passwords first came around, and it was really just to reserve. I think it was for an IBM mainframe, right? So they'd kind of like put things in order and be like, hey, who's next on the list, whatever. But they haven't really changed a lot. If you look until like the early 2000s, we're still using kind of legacy type password systems, and it wasn't only until probably the mid 2000s, 2005, 2006, where we started seeing changes in that kind of industry. And those changes have really led to, obviously dual factor was the first one, and now we're looking at multi-factor. And then some more trends that we're getting into, of course, biometrics has changed the way because it's become a lot more consumerized. And now we're moving more towards passwordless authentication as well. So definitely a lot of trends and a lot of changes that we're seeing in the authentication model. And Cisco is definitely taking a leadership role with Duo on that front. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I know it's Powerland makes a really strong point of making sure that we have best of breed multi-factor for all of our staff. I mean, again, particularly not to come back to it too much, but our managed services provider, right? The making sure that we don't eat the same dog food that all of our customers are eating, so that if someone gets compromised, it doesn't go across everyone. Compromising Powerland doesn't compromise our customers and vice versa. So just making sure that we keep those blast radii small, and we make sure that if something does happen, we can respond quickly, clean up a small mess versus respond slowly and clean up a big mess. Right? That's where I think that we're seeing multi-factor have a big use, just sort of philosophically, on how we approach things.
Yeah, I agree.
So given that quick chat about MFA, for customers that haven't adopted yet or have only adopted it for the high risk users, the IT guy and maybe the CEO if you're really lucky, or CFO, a couple of the tech savvy folks. For those that haven't adopted yet, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways that authentication attacks can occur. Tell us a bit about that and some of the tools that they can use to adopt them if they're not ready for that large user impact that multi-factor brings, right? I mean, we all know that even push notifications, they're pretty inconvenient at the end of the day. So is there something else they can do? And what kind of attacks are you seeing that are targeted at those folks without MFA yet?
Yeah, so if an organization isn't ready to use multi-factor authentication, Um, Obviously, the easiest thing you can do, I mean, passwords, if done right, um, can still work. Of course, um, the problem of it is, I think I read a number where, based on number of systems and based on the hope that you don't use the same password for every single system, they say that a person could have up to 100 different passwords to access all their system. Now, when I say all their system, I mean corporate, personal, everything. And the reason that's critically important is, I'll tell you an anecdote. So there is a C-level person who was in a bowling league, and that bowling league, of course, had staff. They had a log on and information. Very small organization, not nothing like his corporate world, his corporate security. But he used the same password in that environment as he did in his corporate world. And what happened was, that small organization with very low or no security controls, they got hacked. And they looked at all the people in the bowling league, and they looked at all the usernames and passwords. And of course, they did a little bit of intel, and they went on a Facebook, they went on a LinkedIn, and they say, well, who of these people are important in their professional lives? And they found a few people that were C-suite, and they tried the same username and password, and lo and behold, they got into the C-suite's email, and from there they were able to worm their way through. They got elevated access within the organization, were able to ransomware them and compromise their environment. So it's critically important that passwords outside of our organization are just as strong and just as complicated. And I think the number is, if you have 13 um, digits and it's using upper, lowercase numbers and symbols, it takes something like 3,000 years for that to ever be hacked. So there is a method that, again, with a strong password, you can kind of restrict the bad guys from getting in. Of course, as we know, very few people do that. And often people are using like dictionary words, names, common language that can be easily surfed and sourced through artificial intelligence nowadays, that are just constantly hacking and things like that. So that's one area. The other area, of course, is conditional access, right? I mean, some of the tools we've used, things like, for example, if you fail, more than twice or more than 3 times, they're just going to completely block the person out. That's one of the ways that we can kind of help in the back end, from a policy control, prevent some of the bad guys from getting in. But in its most simplistic world, I would say that multi-factor authentication, not dual factor, but multi-factor authentication, truly does solve the vast majority of the ways that the bad guys are trying to counteract, like brute force attacks or dictionary attacks, as example. If you have multi-factor authentication, those kind of go away. You can't really break in because you still need that second device. So I would say that no matter how good your password game is, somebody, the least hanging fruit, there's going to be employees, and you see it on the street in those interviews where people like end up guessing their passwords. You see Facebook, those surveys where it's like, where's your first name? There's tricks, and people fall victim to it all the time because it seems benign. So my recommendation is, move towards multi-factor authentication, and it'll actually make your user experience much better as well, if you do it properly.
Yeah.
If you do it properly.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And it's one of those things where you can do it the old way, but it's hard. I mean, yeah, you've got to have different password for everything. Every password has to be strong. And at the end of the day, no one's going to commit those to memory. So, and this is where we can start to talk about the tools that Cisco has to simplify some of this, but things like password safes and password managers, right? Conditional access built into the services and the authentication systems itself. So it's very difficult to be brute forced from out of country if you don't allow logins from out of country. That tends to work pretty good, but you need to have that baked into it. So what does Cisco offer in as part of the Duo suite or anything else that provides that password manager, that conditional access, and how does a company sort of start to retrofit that into their existing systems?
Yeah, well, one of the ways that Cisco and Duo is doing it, right off the bat, it has the largest number of form factors available. So depending on the organization, some people, if you want to continue to use a password, or you want to use SMS text, or different ways to authenticate. We still are obviously recommending with multi-factor authentication in Duo that it's not just username and password, but there is some other form, right? Obviously, the most common, the most popular would be to leverage your smartphone. There are every other hardware factor out there, or biometrics is available as well. And obviously, biometrics is the most secure of that because it's something that you can't physically be taken. Although I will say, I would be shocked in the future if things like deepfake can do a good enough job with facial recognition so that the face unlock, I think, is actually going to become a problem. And that's why, again, we're shifting towards passwordless authentication as well. One of the interesting things as well, I would say, is that there's MFA spamming going on. And if you get hit with enough of these and you're sitting there on a simple, click to access, obviously, if you haven't tried to authenticate to something, you should automatically be aware. And one of the changes that Cisco has recently made is they now have a number code that you can match up. So you can see that if you did this, you're going to get your 4-digit code and you're going to match it up to what's there. Yes, it still, can be a single click, but it does allow you that kind of second level of double check. Wait a second, this code doesn't match my phone or my hardware token or whatever that is. That something's going on. So there is that process to help identify and secure that access a little further.
That's great. I mean, I've seen that move. I saw Microsoft do it first. Google's doing it now, and I use Duo both personally and professionally, and I'm seeing it doing it there. And I personally quite like that move, the move to match this code, find this code in this list. It makes sure that because there are sometimes I'll go to log in, got a new phone, log into Google. My old phone says, "Hey, you logged into Google." I'm like, is that this login, or is that a different login?
Yeah, what session is it? Yeah, exactly.
Which session is it? So that approach I really like. It gives me confidence as a user that this is okay, good. I have confidence that accepting this login is the right thing to do versus I know absolutely it's not the same thing. So this is probably not the right thing to do. So yeah, giving users that confidence, especially those that aren't confident in technology, giving them confidence that they're doing the right thing, I think is really important. So up until now, we've talked about the authentication to the service itself. We talked a little bit about that moat and castle approach to security. There's a whole piece that you touched on that I want to dig in a little bit here in the second half of the podcast, which is that connection to the service. That service may not be exposed to the internet. It may not be exposed to everywhere in the world. We talked about geographic locality. What is Cisco doing for that edge, that gateway to the applications, the way that users connect to applications and data and services in a modern way? And in the past, it might be your VPN token, your IPsec VPN. You see the little green blinkies in the bottom. How is that working now, and how is Cisco enabling that connection part of that user application relationship?
Yeah, it's a great question. And a lot of people are asking, have VPNs gone away, or is zero trust network access the new VPN? And the answer really is yes. VPNs haven't gone away, but they've evolved. And at Cisco specifically, we had Cisco AnyConnect. That's now called Cisco Secure Client. And we've really automated, optimized, moved the services into the cloud. You no longer need to have hardware on-prem. You don't need to have these VPN concentrators everywhere. So from a simplicity of an installation, from an ease of management, ease of control, all of those things have increased, as well as the connection. So we've now added connections into our endpoint security services, as well as our integrated service engine, ICE, and our email platform. So there's so many more integrations so that when you authenticate, it's doing it automatically. It's always on. It's always taking the least path. And coupled with multi-factor authentication with Duo and our zero trust network access services that we've expanded from what was traditionally Umbrella, which was only a DNS service, and now with our secure internet gateway tier of Umbrella, adding in the secure web gateway, the CASB, and a bunch of other consolidated features, we've really moved to solve that, as you said, the edge, the secure service edge, or that SASE world. For those listening, the difference obviously is SSE is the security component without the SD-WAN, and SASE is the security component plus the SD-WAN. And of course, Cisco's the leader in the SD-WAN space with both Meraki and our Viptela product, and then in the SSE space. So you can get that whole solution as you move towards securing your edge and that journey for a user to any application, wherever I am, to wherever the applications are, through that service. And then you have those complementary, because you still have some proprietary applications that are sitting on-prem that maybe you want to have that VPN path to, but then everything that's going straight to the cloud, you're going to leverage Duo for your access as well as your device posture, and then you're going to leverage your DNS security, and which is great for geo blocking or application control, as well as visibility, because you're going to basically see every single application that every user is connecting to, whether they're sanctioned or unsanctioned. One of the probably my favorite things that the IT admins look at is this is their visibility tool. This is their shadow IT tool, right? It's like I can see everything and I can choose if I'm going to block it or allow it. That's a really great advantage. And then with all the other advanced features that we've added, we're really bringing that whole package together for that zero trust network access conversation, which is that access piece. And then, of course, it expands with these other components that I mentioned as well.
Yeah, so your mention of umbrella there is really good, because umbrella is a bit of an umbrella. There's lots of stuff under it, but providing that security for the worker everywhere through DNS, through content filtering, and just through that visibility, transparency, and observability is a huge part of securing the workforce, in addition to the path the workforce takes to the application and then the application itself, right? So it's very much this 3-layer cake of security that Cisco can provide. And the last thing I want to make sure that we talk about is, I mean, we can talk about this 3-layer cake for whatever, for lack of a better term, from any provider, but what makes Cisco's approach and the solutions they use to build it unique, different, and valuable from the rest on the market? Like what sets Cisco apart here?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Obviously, being able to articulate our differentiators, our value prop, is critically important, and none of it, comes at the expense of our competitors. That's not the way Cisco operates. So, from a Duo perspective, there's 4 probably key areas that I would call out as our differentiators. Number 1 is simplicity. One of the nicest things about it is we're across platform implementation. So it doesn't really matter where your applications are, where your users are, or what applications you're using. We can connect to the largest number of devices, largest number of applications, in any agnostic type of a framework. So what I feel is the future is going to be a lot more, we'll call it, workload portability is going to start to happen a little bit more. So security can't be tied to a specific solution that maybe has a limited view. It needs to be agnostic, and it needs to be able to flow across every single application, whether it's in the cloud, whether it's software as a service, whether it's on-prem. And that's really what Duo is already representing. So from a simplicity perspective and a platform agnostic perspective, that's critically important. Ease of deployment, our customers say that turning on Duo is one of the fastest and easiest solutions that they've ever had. So we can provide that acceleration into time to value incredibly quickly. And that's what our customers say, one of the things they love about that. Pivoting over to Umbrella, first of all, I think it's important to highlight just that Umbrella's been around since, I think, 2006. It's one of the first cloud native solutions out there. We've had 100% uptime since 2006. That's just incredibly powerful stat right there, an incredible differentiator. In fact, the other cool stat is that 90% of all malware comes through the DNS layer. So if you start with the best DNS layer protection in the market, you're going to take away a large chunk. We're seeing numbers in the 50 to 70% range of customers saying that they've seen that kind of a reduction in their own services and malware coming into their environment. That's hugely powerful. Our customers are saying that within 50% 50% of our customers seeing value in day one, and 78% are seeing value of deploying Umbrella within a week. And what they're actually calling out is that when they turn it on, they're actually seeing that they were in a state of breach that their current security products hadn't even identified yet. So that's incredibly important. I have to obviously state Cisco Talos. If you don't know what Cisco Talos is, it's the largest non-governmental threat hunting organization in the world. They identify 20 billion threats on a daily basis. For Umbrella, they do 628 billion DNS requests daily with over like 100 million active users. So the view that we have of the DNS layer is incredibly important. And then when I want to think about efficacy, and if we look at efficacy and performance, Mircom Labs actually shows a 33% improvement in latency and up to 73% in traffic consistency. There's studies done where it says, well, if I put a proxy in place, am I going to be faster or slower? The common thought is it'd be slower if I have to go through a proxy. In fact, we're actually that much faster. So we optimize the transport layer, and that's another unique competitive advantage for Cisco. And then, as I said, the efficacy side, our actual DNS security with Secure Web Gateway has a 96.39% efficacy. The second closest competitor is 89.67%. I don't know about you, but when I'm buying security, I'm buying it for security efficacy, not because it's got a fancy name. That's really the first thing that I want to stand upon. So that's really some of the big differentiators that we're seeing for those two products in the market.
Outstanding. Yeah, so we're pretty much near our time here, but this has been fantastic. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone watching and listening has learned a lot. Last comments, Paul, is there anything that you really think they should know or that you want folks to know and hear that we haven't touched on yet? Or did we pretty much cover it?
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, I don't know if everybody knows this, but both Duo and Umbrella we do free POV. So as I said, customers within the first 24, 48 hours are seeing value. This is mostly done. I think it's like, I used to sell it directly, and it was like 90% of my customers that did a POV within a week were like, this is incredible, I need to turn it on. We've had numerous case studies where we have customers that are deeply invested in Microsoft Security Stack, which is a phenomenal security stack. I'm not saying anything bad about them. But Umbrella specifically provides a different layer of security, and it really calls out and actually strengthens the existing investment. I always look at it, if an organization is investing in the security stack and the E5 suite, they're really focused on security. So I find Umbrella as the least expensive, largest, and most impactful security service out there in the market today. And it's deployed in a matter of minutes. It's literally, we deploy a POV in 10 minutes for customers. So it's not a lot of big lift for you as the security administrator, which is one of the most painful things when you're trying to deploy any new security is A, you don't want to take forever to do it, and B, you want to get time to value extremely quickly. And both these services are fastest to deploy and fastest to get that value back from your investment. And if I'm a CISO trying to keep my job, I want to be able to show that value, that simple investments at low cost have turned around and really ramped up my security posture in a short period of time. That's really going to demonstrate my value to my organization.
Excellent. Well, this has been a pleasure. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for speaking, and I've appreciated the conversation.
I appreciate everyone having me here. And again, Powerland with your managed services, I think you guys are like right spot in the right market. So, definitely for all those listening out there, reach out to your team at Powerland and let's work together on securing your organization and protecting our business, because that's obviously what we're all here to do, and make sure that we can focus on our business and keep the security simple and easy in the back end so that, we don't have our names in the newspaper. Thank you very much for having me today. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Thanks, Paul. And for everyone listening, if you've got questions, you can reach out to your Powerland rep or reach out to Powerland in general. We're more than happy to help.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. And remember to like and subscribe. And hit the bell notification to get the latest and greatest videos from Powerland when they come out. Follow us on social media at Powerland_CA on Twitter, Powerland Canada on LinkedIn, and on Facebook. to hear about the latest and greatest in IT solutions.